Welcome to Open Mic, the one-stop pod for everything going on in the media landscape. I'm your host, Nick Bruno, and today we're going to be talking about the Netflix adaptation of The Last Airbender. This live-action adaptation sits as one of the most anticipated shows of 2024, and joining me to talk about it will be my brother Kyle. The show offers a lot to talk about, and we'll be going over what we think they got right and what we think they got wrong as well. So sit back and relax and step on up to the Open Mic. Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix series based on Avatar: The Last Airbender Nickelodeon animated TV show, which we have a long history with.
That we do. We watched originally when it aired.
Yeah.
We saw the finale as it was airing, and at the time, being a kid, it was it was insane.
I did not know there could exist a show like Avatar. I thought that set the bar pretty high for me for all TV shows after seeing that, because you were older than I was, and I mean I was. When did The Last Airbender come out?
It must have been around 2005, give or take. But yeah, definitely, because with things now, let's say like Game of Thrones, for example, that made waves and was way mainstream, and it was incredible up until the last season or two. But that's another story.
Yeah.
But in that you really get to see this developed world and the lore and the everything that just went into creating that feeling, that everything. And as an adult, that's clearly an adult show with adult themes and whatnot. This Avatar, honestly, as a kid, was a similar version just for kids, because it was the first, because it wasn't Cat Dog or SpongeBob.
No, Fairly Odd Parents.
Fairly Odd, or you could just sit down and watch an episode and this random thing happened.
You can just leave it on. It's not that it's background TV, but it could be it's something you don't really need to invest too much in. And if you do invest, you're going to get some enjoyment in between whatever tasks you're doing that day.
Yeah, it's if I feel one season they might throw in I actually just recently went back to one of the last seasons of it, and they have a third godparent now, and they could just throw that in at any time, and you'd be all right, cool.
That's a show that changed a lot. I didn't even know it ended.
I honestly don't know if it has. You could sit down and watch an episode of that, or even SpongeBob, cool, and then you could skip an entire season, watch another episode. You didn't miss a thing.
Correct.
Avatar, and as a kid, this was brand new. Bringing in the Game of Thrones feeling, where it was a set journey. Every episode was progressing the plot, the character development, the world that you are in, because you would learn new things almost every episode, honestly.
Yes, yeah. In a way, each and every episode was a continuation. It was like picking up a book. You couldn't open up, you can't just pick up, say there's the entire Avatar series written on paper. You can't open that book and go to a random page and be all right, the story starts right here.
Yeah, because SpongeBob, you could pick up literally anywhere and be oh, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, you could watch any episode out of order, because each one's something different.
Yeah, it's I'm not going to tell you to sit down and watch, I'll bring up Game of Thrones again and go to, the Red Wedding. That's
correct.
Not good.
Spoiler alert for all things Avatar, all things Game of Thrones, all things SpongeBob. So
going forward, yes. Yeah, so I guess let's just get right into Avatar then.
Yeah. So when Avatar ended, the cartoon on Nickelodeon, we were this needs a movie.
Could you something?
Could you imagine seeing real people do this, or bringing Avatar to life? Because it was just a cartoon, and it was a very lifelike cartoon.
And even then, it wasn't let me do this crazy, ridiculous hand motion, and then fire comes out. In the world of Avatar, there are 4 elements, and cultures are built completely around those elements. So There's the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation, the Water Tribes, and the Air Nomads.
Yep. Earth Kingdom's constructed of, villages, cities, all built around the idea of just rocks and, natural monuments and so on and so forth.
Whereas with firebending, they are more like Chinese traditional inspired. They are very much about power and seizing the moment and things like that. The air nomads are think Tibetan monks.
Yep.
They live disconnected from the world. They are peaceful. Their whole bending philosophy is defense.
Quite literally up in the clouds.
Yeah.
And water's, also secluded from the rest of the world, the North and South poles. But
the southern pole is not doing so well.
No.
Because everything changed when?
The Fire Nation attacked.
That is correct.
Bass drop.
So the series picks up a little after what we're about to discuss. So in the world of Avatar, there is a comet that comes once, give or take, around every 100 years.
Yep.
This comet amplifies firebender's ability to bend. So, and I don't know which martial arts each bending is actually based off of in real life. But whatever, if you picture, something at a, maybe like a martial arts competition, something from a setting like that, and then having maybe like a 4-foot flame streak behind you, something like that.
Yep.
This comet that comes once every 100 years basically amplifies that by tenfold.
It's fire bending on steroids.
And the Fire Lord, the head of the Fire Nation at that time, used it to start an all-out war on the entire planet, basically. And also in this world, there is one person who is able to bend all 4 elements. You can only bend one of these things, or honestly, I feel like most people in this world cannot bend anything. It's almost like more of a gift. It feels like, at least when you're watching the original, you must have 70% of people who have that gift.
Correct. Yep. And all this to say, all this background into it, you want to illustrate just how much we appreciate the original show and how much thought and care went into it, the research, for nothing more than a cartoon on Nickelodeon, as we said, was paired with SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents. Because to illustrate just how much we appreciate that show, we're going to have a lot to say about what Netflix did with it.
Correct. And on top of that, as you just heard, Fire Lord starting this war quite literally wiped out an entire quarter of the world's culture in one day. I don't know about you, but I think that might be the only cartoon that approaches genocide for children.
That was, and ultimately that's kind of what, when, there was another show that came out after Avatar, Korra, and that one they stopped putting on TV entirely. They started releasing those episodes online.
Korra is the sequel to Avatar, which we're not going to be discussing.
No, but it's just goes to show it tackled very adult themes to an audience of, again, people watching SpongeBob.
And this isn't anime either. Anime is for sure directed towards, a more mature audience usually. This is straight up Nickelodeon.
Yes. This was way before anime was even, the shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to wrap up quick with the premise here. The Avatar is born, and this is also a very spiritual world. There's a whole spirit world parallel to the Earth, normal
reality.
Yeah. And this Avatar, their duty each lifetime, because they're reincarnated each time they die, is to master all 4 elements and keep balance within the world.
And the spirit world. The bridge between the 2 worlds.
Yeah, and to keep that on check as well.
Correct.
And so when the Avatar passes away, the new Avatar was born into the Air Nomads. 12 or so years later, after the new Avatar was born, you get, which is Aang, the main character.
Little, just happy-go-lucky kid, normal air nomad, just normal, ordinary kid.
Yep.
Just like any of the viewers of the show, really.
He is told much younger than one usually tells. So they usually break the news to the new Avatar when they're 16 years
16,
old.
yeah.
And they told Aang when he was 12, and they told him because there were
Storm clouds.
brewing.
Which was not mentioned at all in the Netflix show, but we'll get to that.
So they told Aang when he was younger because they could feel that, the Fire Nation was unsettled.
Correct. Something was coming. Something that required the Avatar, the strength, the resilience of the Avatar, that couldn't wait 4 more years.
And so, being a 12-year-old, 16 is still too young, but...
Correct, yeah.
Telling a 12-year-old, hey, you're this, godlike figure who has powers beyond your comprehension at this point in life.
And you've had hundreds of past lives.
Yeah, and I should also mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so they tell Aang, Aang runs away because he can't handle this, and on that very night is when the Fire Nation makes their first move during this war with the comet behind them. So they basically, Aang leaving was a huge win.
Yeah, didn't seem like it at the time, but
yeah, and overnight his entire people are erased from the world, and during his running away, he gets caught in a terrible storm. Long story short, the Avatar state activates and it saves his life. It basically is this glow, which if you know the series or have seen anything, if you see the bald kid with arrows on his head glowing, that's what that is. And it basically unlocks all the avatars before him knowledge to channel through him at once
for some divine purpose in that moment that they need it for.
Correct. And so it encapsulates him in a ball of ice, and then 100 years later he's woken up by Katara and Sokka, which is where the series starts.
Correct. And
so this is all the backstory for a Nickelodeon show. We haven't even talked about anything yet.
Yeah, and not even to mention what's on, what's in the spotlight right now, which is the Netflix adaptation of it. And like we said before, this was a show that required we wanted to see a live action version of it for a long time. And we did get that in 2000 whatever with a certain movie that should not be named because it was just so damn terrible. And that's not even a hot take right there. I think 99% of people, except for our father, can agree that...
Our father. Yeah, we're brothers.
Yeah, correct. And for some reason, he thought the movie was great, but I think he's the only person in the world who believed that.
Yes.
But just goes to show, after that came out, that whole debacle, we were like, yeah, never again should this be made live action. Until we got the news that Netflix acquired the rights and was doing their own spin on it. And now that is finally out and everybody's gotten a chance to experience it, which I wanted to add that, how long has it been? Like 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Just about 2 weeks over. I want to say a lot of people, and it's just the world we live in right now, but a lot of people, YouTube, Spotify, just podcasts in general, even reviewers, critics, posting reviews for the show the day after it comes out, not even a full 24 hours it comes out, talking about whether or not it's good, bad, just rushing to get that click from whoever. Because, I'm speaking for at least myself, definitely for you, I would imagine. As soon as it comes out, we were waiting to go see what people were saying about it. Not even just the comments on Instagram posts or YouTube videos, but also just what those, influencers were saying about it, because, we've been waiting years to see something like this. And I just want to say it's kind of sad how people just jump the gun on reviewing those things less than a day before it even comes out. What do you think about in media culture nowadays? People rushing to get that first click from a viewer just to make sure that they get to meet a quota. What do you think about that?
Well, the reason I wanted to do this with you is because it was, watch the show, give yourself time to digest it, that kind of thing, and then talk about it, not go for the click immediately the day after.
Correct.
And with that last movie, quite literally getting a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. Which, yeah.
For what, the critic score or the audience score?
Critic audience is 30%.
Oh, even
which is
better.
Still quite low.
Oh.
So, yeah, like with the media landscape now, yeah, it is, it's like a 2-hour turnaround time at this point. It's ridiculous.
And it's not even the shows either. It's the movies, it's music, an album comes out, and, we're not going to focus too much on music right now because this is about Avatar, but yeah, I know there's that famous, any fans of the Breakfast Club here, that's famous interview with Jay-Z talking about the, I forget his exact wording, but quoting him roughly, he said, the music comes out and they're just reviewing it like that. You need to listen to it, watch it more than one time, 3 times. You're not going to catch every little detail the first time you listen to an album or watch a movie or watch a TV show. You're not going to catch everything. So if you're not picking up on everything, well, I'm sorry, but like, what gives you the right or what gives you the credibility to talk about, to review it as a whole when you're not getting each and every part? You might be missing something entirely that the creators were trying to illustrate for you, but just because you're rushing through it and trying to get your thoughts out there, bam, 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 you're missing that big overlying message. Now, do you think, when it comes to this Netflix adaptation of The Last Airbender, do you think that there is a big overlying theme that you're thankful that you took the time to watch it a couple times through, compare it to the cartoon? Is there something, are you thankful that you got the time to not just watch it all in one day? Like,
yes. Yeah, I guess a little background. I think I've seen the original show at least 6 or 7 times, including when I was much younger, making our mom watch.
A whole nother watch through right there. That's me with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So now I'm waiting on the cartoon version of Breaking Bad. But anyway, continue.
Oh man, that was good. So yeah, I liked being able to digest. So we have, there's a lot of thoughts here and a lot of changes that were made. Some honestly really good, and then some like not so good. I mean, I guess we'll start with the good, right?
Yes, because the show, let's be frank here, the Netflix show did a lot right. I don't want to come in here. I've known it by what we said so far. We definitely have our problems with it. But it's no N-Tight Tomalon.
Yeah,
not to speak that man's name, but it's not nowhere. I don't think any movie ever based on anything could ever be so bad ever again.
And I don't even, I would like to say I'm not biased. Obviously that's going to be impossible here, but no, the movie, just, if you want, pause this podcast right now. Go watch The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan. If you can make it 25 minutes in without kind of rolling your eyes at all, I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe you like the movie. But.
The movie's like an hour and a half long. I've watched paint dry for an hour and a half long, and let me say, it's more mentally and physically stimulating than that movie will ever be. But
yeah, and so yeah, doing this as a show rather than movie is good, because originally the show probably has a cumulative airtime of, it has to be at least something like 8 to 10 hours, because I think there's 16 or so like 25-minute long episodes
per season.
Yeah, per season. And then throwing that into an hour and a half movie, it's like that. It's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, in the first season, there's damn near 20 episodes. And you're trying to, each, like you said, 25 minutes long, commercials, whatever. Trying to bring that down into an hour and a half, can't do it. You literally can't.
Yeah. So
if you want to, have the same effect, if you're trying to illustrate the whole history and all this, which is what made the original show so good, which is why, we'll get to this later, but does this show even require a live action version at all? But we'll get to that.
The good. So let's say, I liked a couple of things. So at this point, I guess we'll just assume that the listener knows a little bit about it.
They do now.
If we're going to give a little
do now.
backstory on everything, this will take much longer than it should.
Yeah, I'm hoping if you're listening to this, you at least have an idea of what Avatar is. You probably just listened to us explain the entire background of it. Like, yeah, we know that already. But just in case you don't. But from now on, we're just going to assume you know what we're talking about. So let's go with it.
So first thing that I love that they changed were, so Iroh and Zuko clearly have, it's one of the best relationships.
Correct. Stole the show throughout every scene. Like, I have my problems with the scenes, but anytime it was Iroh and Zuko on screen, I was hooked in, and I was definitely paying 100% attention.
One of the best things that they changed was, so in the original cartoon, Zuko is banished for speaking out of turn in a war meeting.
Correct.
With his father, the Fire Lord, aka, I mean, yeah, we're assuming you know things, but
the main antagonist of the show.
And I guess suffice it to say, like, you could maybe equate him to, like, Adolf Hitler. He quite literally is part of the organization that wiped an entire culture off the face of the earth.
Destroyed an entire culture, and plans to do it again.
Plans to take care of the rest.
Not even, and they don't even see it as genocide. They see it as, we are the best,
and they're sharing their greatness with the world.
And that was Sozin,
Yeah.
Fire Lord Sozin. He said, we are the greatest. Look how great we have it. It sounded great when he worded it the first time, as just his initial idea, back when the four nations lived together in harmony. Yeah, it was just an idea to him. He's like, look how great we have it. We have food, we have abundance. Let's share that with the world. And it sounds great when you say it like that. And when, it's like, but what if they don't want to share it with you? What if they don't want that? Because they're just fine on their own. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but our way is the best way. And we're going to show that, whether they like it or not.
Right. So when in this war meeting with Zuko and he's banished, they're basically saying, hey, we're going to move the 41st Division here as a decoy, basically let them get slaughtered, and then by letting that happen, our troops can go and take this location.
The real purpose of the mission, whatever that mission was.
Right. So with Zuko seeing that his soldiers, more or less, since he's the prince,
people who are part of the nation,
and are just going to be slaughtered,
offered up as bait
for a mission, he stands up and is like, hey, this is wrong. Like, why are we doing this? They're loyal to us, this, that, and the other. And
like the one guy said, like, it's entirely new recruits. You're just going to offer them up like that? And he's like, or you expect them to take on an entire, defense from the Earth Kingdom? And like the guy says, I don't expect them to. They're the bait. Yeah. That's all that is. And as they did it in the show, in this new Netflix adaptation, they approached that topic.
Yeah, so same thing happens. Zuko speaks out of turn, yada, yada, yada. But later, you find out that the crew that Zuko's been banished with this whole time and searching for the Avatar for 2 or 3 years, and I should say real quick, yeah, Zuko's rude to these guys. He...
dismissive, doesn't care about them. He does, but he's preoccupied with his own, what he has to do as an individual.
Yeah, and they get to the point where they're fed up with him, and they go to Iroh and they're like, hey, we can't, the prince is spoiled. This is, Netflix switched it so that instead of, the crew kind of just being shackled to Zuko, that's what their orders were, the crew was actually the 41st Division that Zuko spoke out against. So with that being the case, I should say in the original show, they carried on with the plan. 41st was sacrificed. Moving on, Netflix, you kind of see a little bit after that, and they kind of show Ozai saying, "Hey, since
you care about them so much," or I think that's what it's like. Since you care about them so much, they're your new crew.
Yeah, all right.
Thus, kind of like giving Zuko some leeway there. He's like, so, you're right. We won't sacrifice them. Instead, they're your new crew.
And you're banished.
Until you bring back this one human being.
So, I thought that was a great change, because that also kind of opened everyone's eyes, and they're like, wow, actually this, Zuko's not an asshole.
He cares. But and then that brings up, that's great. I'm glad that they did that. That's a great. They do a couple things like that in the Netflix adaptation where they take something that was not included in the original cartoon whatsoever, throw their own spin on it, and it works. It's great. I'm like, I see what they did there. The writers, they're being their own version of creative there. They're trying their own vision, their own idea, and it works. Mm-hmm. Now, it leaves questions, though. So, like, now that the 41st Division has been made his crew, what happened to that original battle plan that included them? It's like, okay, the 42nd.
Yeah, they were probably just subbed right back in.
Yeah, it's like it was like, all right, forget the 41st, there was Zuko, now bring in another group of recruits, whatever. Like, and you're not giving it an explanation. So
yeah, and we don't know if, Ozai is going to end up having a character arc. I hope he doesn't, because he's just supposed to be bad, but him almost showing mercy there, it's like, I wonder if that plan succeeded. But
it had to somewhere along the line, but they're definitely trying to show more with Ozai in this show. Like I said, I remember it wasn't until the second season.
You do not see Ozai until season 2. Or no, season.
It might be season 3. It's not until Zuko gets welcomed back home.
It's season 3.
It is season 3 because Aang gets.
That was another huge plot device that the original had, is that you do not see the big bad guy. You see silhouettes. You see
him from the neck down.
You do not see this guy.
Like, he's menacing. You hear his voice, but you don't get a face to the voice. And he was voiced by Mark Hamill,
which is enough said there.
Yeah, like he's a menacing, scary guy. You're like, oh god, who is this guy? He's cloaked in shadow behind a wall of fire every time you see him. Yeah. And he's sitting there judging. Like, he's never moved. He's just sitting there, just listening to what everyone has to say. And his emotion is gauged by the fire around him. Like, it rises when he's angry. Yeah. It diminishes when he's, reflecting. But right off the bat, you see this guy in the first episode. He's just...
And he's hot. and it's not the fire. No pun intended. I do not know the actor's name for Ozai. We can do a quick look up, but yeah, you get to see him right off the bat. I think is it Albert Kim or Daniel Day Kim?
Daniel Day Kim.
He is honestly excellent.
He's great acting, great performance, and that's another thing. A lot of the performances in this show, such as Ozai, such as Iroh, such as Zuko, like we said, Zuko and Iroh steal the show, but a lot of these actors did a phenomenal job. It's almost as if they may not have known a single thing about Avatar before they get brought in for this, and it looks like they did their research. They said, okay, I need to be menacing. I need to be in search of my honor. I need to be a father figure to this banished prince. They did their research. However,
well, yeah, let's say one more thing. I do have one more good thing.
Let's finish with the good.
And these obviously aren't all the good things, but these are the things that really stood out as like a long time fan. So this was a change that I thought was good too. So again, in the first season, you don't see, hear, or even know about Azula at all. Zuko's sister, the princess.
She may get referenced. Was like my sister. My sister, yeah.
And you actually the last frame of the season, which does mirror the Netflix adaptation, you hear Ozai saying, like, all right, your brother's a failure, it's your turn, and then you see her look up, and then that's the end of the season.
And you're like, awesome. Oh, there's gonna be a new bad guy.
Exactly, and again, it's always moving forward, which was amazing. As like a kids show, is always the plot didn't stop, and you can't skip an episode, otherwise you're
gonna be lost. Exactly.
So with Netflix, they drastically changed that. You see Azula in episode 2 or 3 maybe, and she is you get to see her a lot instead of being this cold, calculated, like brilliant, terrifying character.
Psychopath.
She is still cold and calculating and all of that. But you see there's insecurity, because anytime Zuko's brought up about doing anything positive,
pissed.
She pissed.
She's like,
pissed.
Not this guy again.
You almost see like tears in her eyes, like every time.
Correct. And it's like she's fighting for the approval of her dad, which makes sense. It's kind of like, that's what she was doing in the show too, but it wasn't so blatantly obvious. But it's like...
That's another thing. A lot of things are blatantly obvious in this.
Yes, a lot. But Azula's just so on the nose, like... She's more personable. She's more easy to understand as a character. And I'm sorry, but what made her so menacing in the original show was that she was straight up a psychopath. She was insane. She was... You see it time and time again. She's completely devoted to the cause of the Fire Nation.
Ruthless.
So
I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, especially towards the end of the show.
Correct.
The series.
But you don't really see that in the Netflix adaptation. She's definitely, got some...
She's got bite to her.
She's got bite. And I think her performance was great too. It was...
That's the thing. I think the actors, I'm trying to think. There were very few actors in this who did not do a good job.
Correct.
The writing, I think, underserved most actors in this.
So like I said, Zhao was a great character.
Zhao was pretty good.
The acting for Zhao was great. But the script...
For Zhao. I mean, yeah.
Not just Zhao, but everybody. They kind of... It's like the actors were, A tier. The script was at best C.
Yeah, so if you... I mean...
You can't really find a common ground there. It brings everything down another level when you have great actors with a bad script.
And like the kid who played Aang. I don't have his name. He did great. He was... I mean, I don't know what a perfect Aang looks like, but he's really close to it.
Yeah. For how old is he? Like 13, 14?
I think he was actually 12 when they started.
And for a 12-year-old, like I don't know how my acting skills were when I was 12 years old, but they weren't as good as his, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that, and then, the CGI was very well done. There was a lot of it. And yes. I think the issue with the CGI was the lighting on the actual people in the frame, which made the background, the actual CGI, look off because the lighting did not match what they had done in post.
Correct. I do believe they spent too much time or devoted too much effort to the CGI itself. And
there's a quote that has aged so well from the original series, and one of the episode before the finale, Nickelodeon was like, why don't we do like a recap? Let's have a spin on it. The Ember Island players.
The Ember Island players. And, shows will do that time to time. They give you that recap episode.
It'd be a clip episode. Oh, this happened, moving to here. This happened, moving to there.
And it's a tale as old as time. The Office did it. Yeah. Parks and Rec did it,
Which is fine.
And those are real people shows. So the fact they threw those through an episode like that in a cartoon,
it shows that it matters. The plot is everything.
It's yes. Well, however, in that episode with the Ember Island players, it's sort of like a half-assed rendition of it all. It's the Ember
bad. The characters go to a play and they basically watch what the Fire Nation thinks the group has been doing this whole time, with it also being propaganda for the war. So you see Aang as this ditzy little, he has played, I don't know how to say it, but every actor on that stage in the episode is a huge, dramatic, just awful version of
Katara's actress is just about, I hope this, I hope that, and it was a good satire of the show itself. It's like, people think Katara is just a character who worries about hope so much. All right, let's make a fake character just be like that all the time.
Yeah, it's like
Sokka's
God. Yeah,
Sokka's just a dummy worried about cracking jokes, eating food, being hungry.
Toph is basically the Rock.
They have the Rock playing Toph, basically.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, real quick. This quote this play was bad. So at the very end of the episode, they're walking away, and everyone's like, "Oh, wow, that was actually pretty bad. That made no sense." And then Sokka just goes, "Yeah, well, the effects were decent." Yeah. And that held true for the movie, which was awful. But yeah, the CGI at the time was pretty good. And then this, it's almost mirroring it once again. You know, there's, like I said, there's almost nothing good about that movie. Actually, there is nothing good about that movie.
Correct.
But the Netflix show had a couple of really nice changes that actually kind of made me go, ooh, that was a missed opportunity, and that should be in the original, like the 41st.
See, good touches like that.
Yeah, but in this, you know, CGI, fantastic. Do you have any other good things that you can think of at this moment? Because
Off the top of my head, I mean, all the good in this show are the actors themselves, for the most part. You know, they're great actors for the most part, with not the greatest script. So, but the acting, all right. CGI looks good. They brought a lot of the areas to life. Like you see the entire. What is it? Western Air Temple that Aang is from?
Southern Air
Temple.
You get to see Sozin's initial attack on the world, which you didn't get to see.
Yeah, it starts before, you know,
the cartoon did.
It starts before you see the genocide of the air nomads themselves. You see, you know, there's a lot more added, and it does have some more adult themes to it. Like there was literally a guy burned to a crisp in the first episode.
You do get to see a lot more violence. I was going to say also the one last thing I wanted to say in terms of like really good changes is Monk Gyatso being in the spirit world.
Yes.
For at least Aang's one conversation with him, because it sounds like that was his purpose of like kind of like staying behind in purgatory almost.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, Aang has this conversation and he tells Aang like, you running away, which is a huge theme, which they kept, him running away and then this happening to his people, like it's the blame. He felt the blame was all him.
It's not,
and it's not, because clearly,
which gets touched upon in the finale, from not to jump ahead, but Katara saying, "Hey, had you have stayed, you would have died too. Like there was nothing you could have done. As much as you're the Avatar, yep, you're supposed to be master of all four elements, but had you stayed, like you weren't stopping it.
You're a kid, even now. Like you're a kid, you know airbending, and you're a prodigy. Like that's awesome, but like you're not gonna defeat firebending on like going tenfold. Like that's not happening.
Yeah. Everything about him whack. But now let's move on to the bad.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of that.
And this is
at least I think.
And this is again, this is coming from obviously two big fans of the show, but also I think if you were to watch it coming from nothing, like you can tell they're spoon feeding you a lot.
They are. It's almost as if Netflix thinks that the viewer of the show is stupid a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that is honestly what it feels like.
And the sad thing is, you don't have to be the type of person who looks for a show with a huge overlying story that you need to pay attention to, that you need to get involved with the characters, you need to see yourself in and be like, yeah, go that, like the stereotypical, person at the movie cheering it on and just, whatsoever. You don't need to be a type of person who wants to watch like a show and get invested in it. You may not have time for it. You may have you just want to watch something like The Bachelor or, Survivor, something like that. You don't have to be the type of person trying to watch all of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But
Survivor's good though. Okay, I'm gonna speak out against you there. No, I'm kidding. But
no, not to say that those shows are bad.
I'm just
but they're more easy watching.
Yeah.
You don't need to take something that was not easy watching though and dumb it down for an audience that's just trying to watch something. 100%. Netflix has enough shows about that.
I mean, Game of Thrones aside, because there's obviously that might be one of the most mature shows out there,
if not the most.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else compares to that, but
with going with the negative things, I'm just gonna rattle off a few. Avatar, Kuruk. He just appears in the finale and he's like, yo, my knife is near. That can only mean one thing. This super specific task that no one even knows, like, he means that Zhao is coming to kill the moon spirit. How does his knife being near give him any kind of information? Like, there's nothing in the lore, Kuruk is never even there except for at one moment in time in like literally in the finale of the show. And we know nothing about his special knife. Nothing is taught
There
us.
was no such thing as a special knife.
And this is not even... No, there's literally... Like, this is just brand new. He's like, hey,
My knife
is near.
And Aang's supposed to be like, oh shit, your knife. It's like, oh, I know what that means. The moon spirit is in trouble. Zhao's going to kill it.
And literally no one in the show, even the characters, know that the moon spirit is like a physical like being, like a fish.
Right now. only spiritual leader Yue.
Yeah, which we'll get into.
And Iroh, apparently. Because that's another thing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Iroh apparently being a spiritual leader himself, like having vast knowledge on the spirit world. So apparently,
which if you watch the cartoon, you know that you see, you have when he's captured by the Earthbenders midway through the season, and Aang is on his way to see Avatar Roku. He's Iroh, which surprises the audience, sees Aang in the spirit world flying on the dragon right above him, like right past him in the sky.
Something that no one else can see at all.
And we're not told, oh, yes, I am Iroh. I can actually see a lot of things. Like spiritual things. Like that's how Netflix would have approached that.
Yeah,
in the cartoon, you see it happen, and you as the audience member are supposed to go, oh, wait, Iroh just saw that?
Yeah, it's because the Nickelodeon cartoon show didn't treat 8-year-old children like me. I was 5, 6, 7, 8 watching that show. It didn't treat me like I was stupid. Like I was able to put that together when I was that young. And I'm not a genius, but I don't need Netflix to say, I am Iroh. I am spiritually intelligent, and I can see things. Like I know that
because that's how it's like treated in the show. Zhao on their way up to slay the moon spirit. Zhao just out of nowhere, and there's literally no context leading up to this about the spirit world. Zhao just kind of goes, oh, yes, I think, I what does he say exactly? He's like,
they're like saying something. It was like, I'm not going to attack the ocean spirit. No, I'm not a crazy lunatic. I'm not a monster, but I will attack the moon. And he says something to Iroh. I do forget what he says, but he says something to the Iroh character that implies that he knows the significance of that.
And the way it's said, it's like we're kind of supposed to go like, oh, okay, Iroh's emotionally intelligent. Check. Good.
Yes.
Moving on.
And that was the first mention of that. Other than him being, more empathetic throughout the entire show, he's not some ruthless... Because this is the Dragon of the West. He's the guy who attempted to conquer Ba Sing Se. He's a well-renowned...
That was good too. Very, that was a good change as well. I just want to quick say when they, that in that scene in the cartoon where Iroh sees Aang, that's cut from Netflix entirely, and then the Earthbenders are kind of just like generic soldiers in the cartoon. And this, the captain, his son or his brother, was actually murdered by Iroh's fleet during that siege, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's
you get to see like real impact.
And he almost kills Iroh for it. He's like, you don't know anything about loss, and he holds a rock over his head, ready to crush him.
Oh my goodness! And that's one other thing. I'm so sorry to skip back to good things.
That was a good thing.
That, and also you got to see Iroh's son's funeral.
Yes.
And Zuko
comforting him.
He goes up, gives him the standard, oh, he fought for his country, this, that, and the other.
Standard condolences.
Moving on. Like, Zuko left, stopped, turned back, and sat with him, because Iroh was all alone. Like, that was awesome.
And then hands him, like, the thing that Lieutenant gave him, saying, he gave me this to, show me that, like, I have what it takes, and I think it belongs to you now.
Yeah.
Showing the deep connection those two characters have. Which, again, not shown in the original cartoon. Great for the character development.
Yeah, and definitely. I think... So I just want to hit real quick, rattle off a couple bad things that I thought were bad. They, in addition to the good things, because I think which is good, we keep going back to things we remember being, better than the original.
Or different entirely, just...
Yeah. So with Monk Gyatso, being there, that was good, but how did Aang know Monk Gyatso was there? Wang Shi Tong, the owl, was just there out of nowhere.
Chilling in the forest.
for no reason.
The
at all.
guardian of the spirit library, who exists in the physical world, mind you, in the
Yes.
show, he was in the library. The library was sunken deep under a desert, even under like feet upon feet, maybe like a mile of sand. I don't know. But,
yeah.
and he's there in the physical
And
world.
that's actually another thing. He's the guardian of the spirit library. This is a library that is eons old that contains knowledge from every culture, literally as much like it is the cultural center of the world, and no one really knows about it
because it can't be trusted in the hands because of someone like
Zhao.
Correct.
And in the old show, you get to see Zhao. Zhao is a little more sophisticated. I feel like in the cartoon, he went out of his way to search for this, famed spirit life. Like he has interest.
You see more of his drive.
Yeah, and you see the interest he has in the spirits. You get to see him seek that out, find it.
He found the spirit library,
and he, it's all off screen, but he makes it. He lies to Wang Chitong. He finds the knowledge of where the moon spirit has been hiding physically, and that's how he knows to go. In the Netflix show,
and
Fire
he knows
Sages
what it would do.
Yeah, in the Netflix show, the Fire Sages are like, oh yeah, here's a couple things that you might be interested in.
And they have, for some reason, the Fire Sages have some ancient scrolls about push and pull and the moon and ocean. And so why do they have that?
Yeah, because if they did...
And they could play it off, too.
That's Ozai level knowledge.
Yeah, they could play it off. They could easily play it off and be like, yeah, that in the Netflix version, the Fire Nation's very sophisticated. They have mounds upon mounds of resources on other cultures, as they should. But it's not explained well. It's just like, here's another scene with, a very obvious green screen in the back with Zhao, this great actor, given a terrible script of him just being like, oh, what are these scrolls about push and pull and this and that? And then the Fire Sage is like, yes, but get this, the moon spirit.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that, Wang Chitong just being in the spirit world and then saying like, oh, there's a hut up there, go check it out, and then leaving. Like, yeah, you could have literally just had like the spirit world is full of little weird creatures. You could have had literally like a little flying guppy. Like, oh, hello, like have
things you wouldn't even imagine.
Exactly. And like you'd be like, oh yeah, there's this like old man who lives in this thing up here. Like it should not have been Wang Chitong, even if they're skipping. Like, and it's not that we're upset about changes. There is so much plot and character development that centers around Wang Chitong that happens that is now like not going to, or is now
just hindered, glossed over.
Because the Zhao thing, like that didn't happen now, and
that could just be the season one, growing pains, I guess you could say. Like maybe they're gonna hear this feedback, maybe not our feedback, but I mean there's gonna be enough people, because Avatar's huge. It's got a big fan base. They're gonna hear whatever. They're gonna work on it, assuming this is gonna get a second two, which I think it will. But
And this being the spoon-fed, like, everything, like, in addition to that, where the sages are just like, hey, here's a convenient plot flashback. The Fire Sages had this, like, Aang even would be like, hey, I'm a goofy kid. I like to goof around with my friends and eat banana cakes. And it's
go penguin sledding.
Well, he doesn't even say that. He doesn't even say that.
I'm sorry.
All you do is hear Aang tell you what he likes to do, or tell you this. The show loves to tell you things.
He just to give him characterization. It's like I am a little kid who likes to do little kid things. I'm not going to show you me doing them. I'm just going to tell you that I like them because obviously I'm a little kid. I'm not supposed to have. Unfortunately, I have the responsibility of saving the entire world and everybody in it. But I'm also a little kid, and you know that now because I told you.
Yeah.
No. In the original show, you see him penguin sledding in the first episode.
And
he woke up from an iceberg, and his first thought, seeing this woman over him, he's like, "Want to go penguin sledding?"
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's a shame. And one of the big, well, actually, I guess I'll save the Zhao's death for a little later because that's a big one. But like, one of the things I would say was definitely missing was not only Aang doesn't waterbend, but he doesn't firebend. He does not meet Zhang Zhang.
No, I didn't even think about Zhang Zhang.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention, Aang was so ahead of himself in the first season of the cartoon that not only was he practicing waterbending, he was also trying to firebend. Wasn't he trying to earthbend too?
No, Earth was not brought up, but and that's another thing. In the Netflix show, Aang does not waterbend. In the original, this whole first season is dedicated to him learning and getting his footing in waterbending.
Because he needs to be master of all four elements. Not just amateur, not just, somewhat sufficient guy of all four elements. No, master.
And he's, originally it's a 3-season arc. I don't know if Netflix is going to push for more seasons if this is very popular. I guess we'll see what happens. But they literally followed everything else generally. Aang doesn't touch. I think he touches water. I think that's it. I think he physically touches water.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You don't see him bend it once. Whereas in the show, he's practicing with Katara because Katara is learning how to do it too.
And they practice and they learn from each other. In this Netflix show, once again, you're kind of just told, like, out of nowhere, like, oh yeah, Katara waterbends really well now. Okay.
Yeah, so all of a sudden she's a master?
Yeah, and then she's referred to as master when, But anyway, I want to go back to Zhang Zhang. Zhang Zhang is...
Zhang Zhang.
And so, with going back to Zhang Zhang, that is a very, very, very important plot line and character development that was just completely skipped.
Yes, because in the original show, like, he gets shown how to do it, and Aang gets ahead of himself. He's like, look, I'm juggling. Look, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And
with fire,
and
for the record, yes.
Yeah. And he ends up burning Katara.
Yeah, and, and in that moment, Katara also, her hands are burned pretty badly, and she runs away, and Aang's like, he feels so guilty and feels so terrible.
Sokka's like, why did you do this? You burned my sister.
Yeah, and, it's a bad moment, and Katara runs off, and she basically learns that she has healing abilities because she puts her hands in the water, and she's a very gifted waterbender to start with. She learns, she basically heals her hands in 5 seconds. And it, like, surprises her, and it's like, wow. And then Zhang Zhang is there, and she didn't realize, and he kind of goes like, oh, wow, you have healing abilities. He's like, I've heard of, certain people of the water tribe having that power. And he, like, almost envies it because he's an old general, like, master who is sick of the destruction. Also, Zhao's master, which was not addressed at all.
And he taught, and he believed, like, he was so disconnected from what we later find out in the show is the true purpose of firebending. He's convinced that firebending, well, great as it is, it's destruction. It's pain. It kills. It's there's no good in it whatsoever. It's
the opposite of water, and he envies that. And so with, that happening, Katara comes back and it's like, Aang, like, listen, like, I'm fixed, like, I'm okay. And Aang is like really torn up. He's like, no, like, I'm never firebending again.
Yeah, that was the thing. He decided, like, then and there, he was like, yeah, I'll be master of all 3 elements. I don't mind. Like, no to firebending, because Zhang Zhang's right. It's pain. It's destruction. It's the opposite of healing. And which, as you said, that's who taught Zhao. And Zhao is that embodiment of destruction and power and conquering and just the, like, animalistic desire.
And then, like, having seen, like, the whole episode with the Zhang Zhang and him teaching the exact opposite of that, and then you learn he was Zhao's master, it's, like, a very interesting plot device. But anyway, this being skipped is going to potentially have ramifications a lot later down the road, because Aang, unless maybe they are going to put this kind of story in a different spot, I get it was cramped, but, like, if it was cramped and you didn't even do waterbending, like, what are we doing
there? It's like you're cramping in the wrong areas. Like, I can give you some leeway if you're gonna, like, skip over things, like how they did with Omashu. Omashu included Jet. It included the scientist, the mechanic, the mechanist. He included that, which are all their own episodes, which with the mechanist being at an entirely different air temple. Jet is somewhere in the middle of, some forest somewhere in some other village.
They're very different things, and, like, combining things, like, like what we said earlier, we're not upset because things were changed because, obviously fresh takes.
Yeah,
We're upset because things are changed that are like vital.
It's almost like they're neglected a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, you don't have to be the type of person that wants to see like all of that. You don't need all the backstory. You don't need each episode being something different in a new location whatsoever. But by skipping over those things, you're missing what made the original show so magical and what made it stand the test of time, to the fact that it gets a Netflix adaptation 20 years later.
So, and you know what else was weird? Everyone's fake hair. Like really fake hair.
Yes.
UA's Iroh, unfortunately.
Yes.
Ozai looked really good.
You don't have any complaints about Ozai.
No, honestly, Ozai was great. Sokka looked good. Katara was good. I'm trying to think, like,
the old people.
Everyone who is supposed to be older in this show, like, I'll say 40 plus, was extensioned out the ass, had really fake facial hair.
And wrinkles.
Yue, who is not, she's probably something like 18. Her wig is horrible, and it's Amber Mid-Thunder, who is an awesome actress, and she just looks not great.
She didn't even... no, that, like, there's just... everything was wrong with that.
Yeah, and so, that was another thing. On top of that, it's something that was just like, I don't know if it was fan service or just to get them to go to, like, the spirit pool at the North Pole, but when Momo BMXs off that little girl and saves her life, like, that, I got up and was like, yeah, let's go Momo, but I didn't, like, I don't know, it felt weird.
He came in out of nowhere. That's the only time he appears in the episode.
Yeah.
And it was just to show that Yue had, like, revitalizing abilities, healing abilities. And that's another thing. Momo and Appa, who were, like, comedic relief almost, but also, like, essential characters to the cartoon.
They're not really
just,
in it. Yeah.
They're just thrown in as, like, transportation vehicles. Like, Appa only shows up when they need to go somewhere. Like, Aang has no interaction with Appa whatsoever.
All the money on CGI, it's like, I get, you might be saying, like, yeah, that takes, like, a lot of time and this, that, and the other, but, like, the entire show was. So it's like, I don't know.
And how are they going to get away in a season 2, hypothetically, when the whole saga happens when Appa goes missing? How are they going to get away with that being so detrimental to Aang when they have almost no, like, scenes together where they're just being, like
buddies.
Like, they're best friends. And that's something every Avatar has. Like, you see it in Korra with her polar bear dog. They have, like, an animal companion that's their best friend. Yet Aang just rides them, and that's it.
Yeah, and if you don't know what we're talking about, and you're listening to this because you want to, there's a lot of weird animals in Avatar.
Yes, a flying bison, polar bear dog.
Yep. Horses in Game of Thrones, in Avatar are ostrich horses.
Ostrich horses.
There are what is Flopsy?
Flopsy? Oh.
What is Flopsy? Which was cut.
I don't even know what
it doesn't matter because that was cut from Netflix.
Flopsy is a Flopsy.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird animals in Avatar, which kind of add to the charm of it. Like they have like the polar bear dog. They have what are the other bears? Because in season 2 they you will. Spoiler alert.
The bear.
Platypus bear.
Platypus
That's
bear.
another one. But there's a scene where, I guess I'll just keep it vague. There's, they're like, oh yeah, we got seats next to this person's bear. And this person's very, very high up, very, they need to get near this person. But like the closest we could get is next to his bear.
And they're reading it. They're like, is that what it says? Bear? They're like, it just says bear.
Like is it platypus bear? Is it? They list literally at least 3 or 4 different other bears.
No, it just says bear. And they're like, this place is weird.
So it's like they're not afraid to make fun of the world because it's a little ridiculous.
And it makes fun of itself in that way too, which is great.
Yeah. So anyway, so many of those animals were cut, and I think there might be like 3 or 4 in the whole season. Like June was really good too, by the way.
June's great.
But
whatever that animal is,
the Shearshu.
Shearshu, yes, that's right.
And another thing I wanted to bring up, the last thing I have, that kind of irks me, I suppose, is that Katara in the cartoon is very, she's headstrong. She wants to learn. She wants to become a master in her element. She wants to care for people. She never wants to turn her back on people. She is a badass.
A natural born leader.
Yes. And even in season 1 of her, like, you see a lot of that.
She even in the original show, she has an episode dedicated where she fakes earthbending in order to be sent to a prison for earthbenders, where she attempts to rescue them and revitalize their sense of hope, because she gets sent to this prison that's a floating metal
Metal
boat
contraption. It's like
out
an oil,
in the middle
like
of the
an
ocean,
oil rig looking thing,
where it's a prisoner for earthbenders, where they're miles away from Earth, deprived of all sense of hope. Where Katara goes to say, guys, what happened? Like, I get it, you're destroyed, but how can you just give up? Like, she embodied that form of hope that was given to her by her mom. And she ends up...
Yeah, and that's another... We see... All right, yeah. So, yeah, just to jump off you real quick. Yes, she learns a lot of that, I think, from her mom. And her mom... There's a scene that you see very late in the cartoon what actually, Katara and Sokka's mom was killed during a Fire Nation raid. You kind of learn that first episode. It's referenced here and there. It's a lot of the drive between both of them. And you don't see what actually happens to her until the last season. And it's a huge moment because Katara confronts the man who did it.
And takes everything in her not to kill that guy.
Yes.
And
so with the Netflix show, you see this flashback, I think 4 times.
Yes, and in the final flashback, you see Katara's mom get burned alive.
And it's like, okay, like, you took so much, like, out of that reveal and that, like, that situation, because Katara in the Netflix show is not the person we have just described.
No.
She is...
Maybe half that. Not even.
She's a completely different character. She's... Honestly, like the Ember Island players we brought up, where the main characters are watching themselves on stage being portrayed poorly, that version of Katara is almost what the Netflix Katara is.
And which is unfortunate, because while I do think her acting, like, it's not the worst, like, it definitely has room for improvement. She's not a bad actress whatsoever. Again, it's the writing, it's the script, and I'm not sure if a lot of this has to do with possibly the writer's strike that occurred.
It's possible.
I would have to look into that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, there's probably something there.
She's kind of just... She's there.
She's there.
She's nice to everybody. And that's fine.
She's a main character you have to include, and it feels like that's where they start and end her as a character. It's like, they need her there, so let's put her there and give her a couple scenes.
Yeah.
There's no episode dedicated to her freeing an entire prison of earthbenders and giving them a reason to believe again.
Yeah, and even then, they even take away, like, Katara, the gifted waterbenders have the ability to heal. When they get to the North Pole, it's like...
Everybody knows how to heal.
Everyone heals. And, they had a plot line where, like, yes, women cannot engage in combat, which is fine.
Women can't fight.
Which, like, they kept that... That's not fine, obviously. But they kept that plot line in the Netflix show, which was fine. But they assumed everyone is a healer. It's like, no, it's like the gifted people who are... good at that. Like, they kind of took that mysticism off.
And one thing that's big too, the fight between her and Paku to show her that she has what it takes to be a fighter. In the cartoon, she fights with everything she has. She's, you can't knock me down. And she keeps going. And even after she's already lost and stuck, she's still, like, going, like, come back, we're not finished.
Yeah.
Like, she has that, like, it's like a firebender instinct almost.
Yeah, it is a fight too. Yeah, it is a firebender instinct.
Like, she's like, you can't stop. I'm gonna finish this one way or another. This, that, and the third. And, like, they copied a lot of the moves from that animated fight in the show, like Paku riding up on the
whole
ice.
Crowd was 10 feet away.
Which not even so weird. Like 2 feet. Yeah. They're like standing right there, not even moving, just watching it. And Paku and Katara are, like, right in front of each other as far as we are
like
right now.
Razor sharp ice, like doing like the
it's like a Pokemon fight.
It was like yeah.
It's like my turn. Your turn. My turn.
Yeah.
Like, no, it doesn't have that life to it. And not to mention,
what gives Paku, that in the original cartoon, what makes him think twice is the fact that during that fight, he knocks off Katara's necklace. Which he looks down and was like, I made this necklace for Kaya.
And as viewers, we're like, wait, this is on the opposite side of the earth. How could you have made this necklace
And
from
it's
where
like,
Katara was born?
and it turns out that Katara's grandmother is from the Northern Water Tribe, and you learn it then, and that makes Paku go, holy shit, I loved her grandmother, and I just completely not embarrassed her, but like she gave me everything, and I'm still telling her no. This is what's gonna make me.
And that was another
think
like
again.
empowering like female thing too, because in the cartoon she, Katara's grandmother leaves the Northern Water Tribe because the Northern Water Tribe is very traditional. They follow the rules, they follow tradition, they do ceremonies because they always have this, that, and the other. And Katara's grandmother said, no, I'm leaving, I'm not getting, because this necklace was basically an engagement ring.
Yep.
So,
which Yue also has.
Which,
yes,
but
doesn't get.
That's what I want to bring that up too. After this, they basically just say, "Hey, I'm not doing the." Or Grand says, "I'm not doing." Sorry, Grand is Katara's grandmother. That's what she goes by. Grand. She is, she leaves. She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not getting married.
Reflecting Katara, kind of like showing that like independence.
Exactly, and that was all. You saw so much of that like empowerment in the original show, and in this one, Yue, who is engaged or is supposed to be engaged to someone. I should say this real quick, a little quick thing. Like Yue in the cartoon is the princess of the Northern Water Tribe. She is supposed to get married and, follow that whole tale as old as time cycle kind of thing. And that's one of the things, like Sokka shows up and her and Sokka have a thing and they kind of can't help each other, and then it comes to a point where Yue is just like, I am so sorry, like she's in tears, like we can't see each other, I'm engaged, I have to do this for my tribe.
She doesn't want to, but she has respect for, like, I have to do it, like it's my duty.
She's going to be like the quote unquote queen. I don't know what their title is, but like she has to do it, like you said. And in this, Yue was just like, no, we were engaged, I'm not doing that though. And it was like, but like that already happened. Like you're not gonna show us that. Like if you're gonna change the character and have her do that, like okay, but there's no impact from it.
That reminds me too. Like I'm pretty sure in the cartoon, doesn't somebody mention to Katara, it's like, oh, so who's the lucky guy? Because she's wearing the necklace.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh no, this is just my mom's.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but in our culture, that means you're engaged. And she's like, oh, well, it's my mom's.
It's like, oh, I'm definitely not.
And another thing too, the necklace doesn't get mentioned once in the entire Netflix show. It's like she's seen wearing it in every shot, but
it's just a necklace.
It's just a necklace. Was Katara's mom wearing it when she got burned alive? What happened to the necklace then? How did Katara end up with it? What happened to Zuko finding the necklace when it gets left behind on that boat where she saves the Earthbenders and uses the Shearshoe, uses the necklace to find Aang? And what happens to all that tracking? Like Zuko being resourceful and smart and intelligent. There's not much of that.
That's not, because do you remember how that happens? The guy in the shop is literally just like, oh yeah, the guy saw the Avatar like 2 days ago.
And then, that's I was like, oh, now everybody knows about the Avatar. Whoa, big whoop. And Zuko's like, I'm gonna lose everything. But he's more like he's written as like a frustrated child more than like a resourceful banished prince.
Yeah, and I will say, because I know we are going on here, I would say one big thing that I want to hit before we're done is Zhao's death. Yes. Now we haven't spoken about this at all, but the way he dies in the new show is Zuko confronts him after he kills the moon spirit.
With the parallels, this whole end of Zhao comes down to Zuko and Zhao fighting on this bridge while Aang is in the Avatar state doing whatever. Both shows include this pivotal fight.
And with the Netflix show, long story short, Zuko almost defeats him and then takes a moment to step back to almost wind up, and Iroh comes out of nowhere and just throws the fireball and is Iroh kills him. End of story. And then they move on. It felt that was also very poor because in the original you have, same thing, Zuko versus Zhao.
With that initial thing, like, you're alive?
Yep.
And Zuko's like, you tried to have me killed. And like...
And this is also their second fight in the original show, because originally Zhao and Zuko have a heated exchange early on, and they fight in Agni Kai, which is basically like a no-rules duel. And
Fire duel.
Yeah, and Zuko wins, and Zuko has every right to kill Zhao in that moment, but Zuko holds back and says no, but the next time you get in my way, I won't hold back. So, with this being their second...
And when he does that, Zhao gets up and tries to do a cheap shot.
Yeah, true.
And that's when Iroh steps in. He's like, even in death, this is like... in defeat.
In defeat.
Like, my nephew has more honor than you.
And so...
Or even in banishment, like he didn't just try to give you a cheap shot. He could have. He didn't. And he has more honor than you do as an admiral. So... I'm not sure what's admirable about you, but even so, like, Iroh kills Zhao in the Netflix version in order, as you know, to keep Zuko safe. He shoots a fireball at him. That's it.
And then, so in the cartoon, so they fight this, that, and the other. But when Aang is doing his big bad, I'm gonna defeat the whole fleet, he is kind of embodying the spirit of the moon that was just killed.
Wait. Yeah, isn't it after like Aang is like done and gets disconnected? The moon spirit is kind of like returning up. It's the moon spirit itself doing it.
True. So when when Aang sees that the moon has reappeared, when Yue does her thing, which is more or less the same as in the cartoon, we'll leave that alone. In the original, just to be clear, when the moon appears, Zhao kind of sees like, how I killed the moon. Like how is it back? And in that moment, the water underneath them, which is made very clear, it's like the spirit kind of comes up with a giant hand and picks him up. And Zuko, still being, this great guy, I guess, he gives Zhao his hand and says, like, here, like, let me try to help.
Take my hand, and Zhao
takes his hand back. And so the spirit takes Zhao under, and you never hear from Zhao again. Which you do very later in the sequel series, but
I thought that was a great touch.
Zhao, killing a spirit, luckily it being revived, that kind of crime, the spirits should deal with him for that. It shouldn't just be like all right, he's killed, moving on kind of thing. And that's how it felt.
The significance of the moon being just destroyed, like the spirit of the moon that keeps nature in balance. Zhao kills it, and that's kind of like the end of it. Like, sure, it all goes grayscale, but that's really the end of it. You don't, and all the waterbenders just fall over and like, I'm weak, and they're like that. But you don't feel the significance. You don't see Iroh blasting fireballs at everybody because it's bigger than the war at that point. You just mess with nature. You just threw the whole entire world off balance. You did something that's even worse than like. I don't know, just like the firebenders just being there in the first place. You don't realize what you just did. And I don't know, it's just those major plot points that I believe that the Netflix show doesn't touch upon at all.
And yeah, it's a shame.
Let's bring it back. Give me your final thoughts and rating of this season and what you think.
Rating, as someone who has seen this already, like in with the original, I would say maybe like a 6.5. If I came into this as someone who didn't know anything about this world, I think it would be a lot lower, unless I was something maybe like 12 years old.
You have a prior love for the series, so you can cut it some slack.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think I could go higher than like a 4.
Dang.
And four's I'd say 5 is just
5 is take it or leave it.
5 is the middle ground. If you make a 5, it's fine. Anything above that, you're starting to get accommodations. You're getting awards for anything above a 5. 4, anything below 4, you're kind of getting some criticism, which is what we're doing here. It's not at the bar where it's like, all right, this is passable. It holds true to the original series, which it does. But unfortunately, because of bare things that go into every TV show, like a script and just effects and whatnot, it just brings it down to that 4 for me. Just because I think a lot of those things that are outside the control of the show itself just hinder it so much, unfortunately. Not to mention, of course, the actual things that it doesn't hold true to the original series. So for that, it's just, I'm going to keep it at a 4, maybe 4.5, and definitely lots of room for improvement.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to see what happens with season 2. Apparently, they've had writers working on it since December, even though nothing is official. And it was the top show in 23 countries. The first
this
week.
new one.
Yeah.
Right? You see, it's definitely got a demand for it.
Yep.
So I think it's got places it can go. We'll see what happens with it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and it was a pleasure.
It was great having you on the show, and we will see you guys in the next one. Hinder it so much, unfortunately. Not to mention, of course, the actual things that it doesn't hold true to the original series. So for that, it's just, I'm going to keep it at a 4, maybe 4.5, and definitely lots of room for improvement.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to see what happens with season 2. Apparently, they've had writers working on it since December, even though nothing is official. And it was the top show in 23 countries. The first
this
week.
new one.
Yeah.
Right? You see, it's definitely got a demand for it.
Yep.
So I think it's got places it can go. We'll see what happens with it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and it was a pleasure.
It was great having you on the show, and we will see you guys in the next one.